Are you stuck in the same old routine at work? Do you find yourself hitting a creative wall, unable to see beyond your current perspective? It's time to break free and unlock the power of fresh perspectives. David Gouthro. Yes, I'm back with another episode of Discover Fresh Perspectives, and today I have the pleasure of having as my guest Christian Ray Flores. Welcome, Christian.
David, a pleasure.
So, Christian, when I asked you what you were passionate about, what you like to do, you use the term flourish. You like to help people flourish and probably organizations as well. So maybe first of all, before we dive into that, tell me a little bit about yourself and your organization so you have a context to listen into.
Yes, you're right. And the context is confusing, so it's probably helpful if you know a little bit. My context is that I have been sort of like a Forrest Gump type character because I end up being in very strange places during historic events. And I basically grew up on 3 continents, 6 countries. This is my 6th country in my 4th continent, right? So I grew up in 5 countries and 3 continents. And I was sort of present during a military coup in Chile when I was a kid. I was 5 years old. We were refugees there. I was there in Africa, in Mozambique, when there was a civil war going on. I was in the Soviet Union when I was I was graduating from college when there was literally the whole thing collapsed around us. There was an attempted military coup there as well. So, civil unrest seems to follow me. But sort of in that journey, certain things and qualities and career turns and developed, right? So I became a media person. I was an artist in the sort of that Eastern European space, 15 countries, for about a decade, one of the top pop artists.
Oh.
I became very entrepreneurial. I produced other bands. I did a lot of philanthropy. I developed sort of the spiritual dimension to my life. And then when we moved to the U.S., as somebody of that kind of ADHD kind of character, started a couple of nonprofits, 3 different companies. And now I work on coaching professionals to develop basically a personal brand in an economy, and a work economy that is just completely transforming, like right before our eyes. And that's super exciting to me because I find that this new economy, this new world we're living in, actually incentivizes the things that I'm passionate about, which is high creativity, high individual value, and impact to help other people.
So that's quite a background. You probably speak multiple languages as well.
I do,
sure.
yeah.
And you're sure that the civil unrest, it actually followed you? It wasn't caused by you? Just to be clear, there's not a causal effect.
I am positive that it was not caused by me. I'm not sure if it follows me or not. I'm very nervous about Austin, Texas, which I've been here for 13 years. So far, so good.
Okay, well, let's hope that continues for at least a few more years. So
yes.
So I'm interested in the fact that you use the term flourish. So maybe you can say just what you mean by that. Then we'll look at how you actually do that with folks.
Yeah, the Japanese have this wonderful term called ikigai, right? And of course, this is widely known. If you're in the audience and you don't know what that is, it's essentially this intersection of what you're passionate about, what you love doing, what you're good at, what people pay for, what the world needs. In the middle is this sort of sweet spot of ikigai, and it's translated roughly as reason for being.
Okay.
If you are, and most of us are usually miss that ikigai moment. We're a little bit adjacent to it, then we're in most of the middle, or maybe we're adjacent to it, and we sort of fluctuate up and down, left and right from that target. And the more we live in that target space, I think that's, in my opinion, the definition of human flourishing.
Okay, and you talked about personal brands. So presume the personal brand is related to that ikigai.
Yes,
and that when you're living your brand, you're in that spot. Is that true?
I think so. Yeah, because it's not just what you love, but it's what the world needs. It's not just what you love, but what you're good at, and people are willing to pay you for. It's not just what you want, but so it's kind of a nice middle ground. And since we spend 8 hours a day doing whatever it is that we do professionally, I mean, what better way to live and to flourish if all those things coincide in the most productive hours of the day, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so how do you go about doing that? How do you help? I mean, a lot of people are talking about personal brand these days. You have to have your personal brand, this, that, and the other
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
how do you go about doing that? First of all, what does personal brand mean? How do you go about doing that? And then, maybe a separate one is, so how does having a personal brand help oneself differentiate in a world that's just absolutely crazy these days? So first of all, what is a personal brand? And secondly, how do you help people discover that?
Well, the personal brand is essentially your reputation. You already have one, basically, right? So everybody has a reputation. You have a reputation, you have a personal brand. But you have a personal brand that is perhaps in very small circles, the people that really, really know you.
Mhm.
You have a brand with them. Like when they think of David, they think of one, two, three, and four, right? Whatever it is, those things are about you. But imagine that only at scale, digitalized. So if somebody is looking out, I mean, the billions of people that inhabit the internet are looking for something, some sort of expertise or guidance or product or service or wisdom, even, right? Um, Somehow you pop up. That's now a digitalized, sort of amplified personal brand.
And then how do you help people discover that? Let's say that I was considering using your services, your coaching services. What would
Yeah.
you tell me that would help me understand how we might work together to discover that?
Well, I think first of all, you have to understand that this is something that you really want, right? And the reason for that is because the world is changing. Literally, the nature, the economy of work is completely different now, and it's accelerated in change, right? So it used to be like what they teach us in school. I mean, we both of us, and even some of the people that are taught in school right now, are being taught that, hey, get good at something, start a career, a series of jobs in different companies. That's a career, and then you retire. That's the process.
Right.
Well, everything is all of that is changing very rapidly, and it's almost non-existent anymore on some level, and accelerating, right? So a few things happened that are very, very different. They don't teach us about this stuff, right? One is that um, you geography. We go to we move to a city to get a job in this career opportunity. Now you can be in anywhere, and all of your team members are in different places, and your clients are in other places, basically. So geography is not as important. In some instances, it is. In many or most, or it's not anymore, right? The economy has changed to a lot of services and products that are sort of centralized through there's corporations and gatekeepers and media outlets, et cetera, to everything from entertainment to services to knowledge economy. All of those things are decentralized and democratized. So one of us can do most of those things that just 20 years ago they had gatekeepers to do those things,
Right.
correct?
Yep.
Everything is faster, right? So you can really find out what the market needs quicker, faster. You can launch a business in a day, and I'm not even exaggerating. But
Mhm.
so for my clients, I say, if you really want this, we'll have a specific offering that is your offering with a business model attached to it in 9 weeks.
Wow. Wow.
In 9 weeks, yeah, you can totally do it. And honestly, it could be faster than that. It just takes this long to convince people that it's that is possible, So so that's what we do, right? So like you have to be the right person. We talk and we don't offer this to just anybody, right? And then lastly, I think just the very nature of AI is disrupting everything. So, and that's sort of I think that's my favorite part about this whole AI revolution that scares everybody. It scares me because we don't know what's going to happen. It's literally the biggest shift, the biggest technological breakthrough in the history of humanity ever. That's that's what it is, right? So it's a beautiful time to be alive. But what happens, I think, that it incentivizes somebody who really wants to flourish, again, that word, in the AI age, to elevate what they do and how they do it. Because what the Industrial Revolution did to sort of eliminate manual labor, right? many people lost their jobs, millions and millions of people, because things were automated, et cetera, et cetera. Now knowledge is automated and skill is automated and logistics are automated. So lawyers, coders, artists, all kinds of people like that are going to be without a job very, very quickly. Salespeople, you name it. The list is very long. So there's this massive swath of white collar jobs that are going to be replaced. Well, the good news about that is that the people who are going to win in this AI economy, they are the strategists, the architects, the actual artists, not the craftsmen, not the executors, not the doers. So now more than ever, you're incentivized to be unique.
Mm-hmm.
You're incentivized to be at the highest level of performance and offerings to the world. You're incentivized to do those things. And I think in ages before, that's actually, you're decentivized to do that because you're in sort of this post-industrial setup where you're more of a cog in a machine, so the cogs need to be all about the same.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's the opposite. And that gets me real excited about the personal brand development, because you are future-proofing your art you're offering to the world by elevating who you are and how you do things.
So let me ask you, and if I'm diving too much into the weeds, just pretend it's a bad signal and hang up on me. But so how much longevity does a personal brand have with things changing so quickly? So, if you talk about the ikigai and being in the middle and, what's needed, what's valued, and all those kinds of things, if those things shift, does that mean that you have to shift your personal brand as well? And I'll give you a little bit of background on this. So I went through a branding exercise with a colleague of mine, association I'm part of, and it was great. All the things I love to do and this passion, but pulled all this together, and it felt great. And I thought, but I don't think anyone's going to hire me to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love the exercise. I love the output. And then I looked at it and I was thinking, well, the current clients that I work with, would I be working with them, or who would I work with? And it was kind of scary. And so maybe
It is
that
scary.
personal brand needs to change. So, how long should a person be thinking about creating that personal brand? And when do you know when it's time to maybe let it go and shift to another? Or do you? Is it like something like a set of personal values that you really should have longevity in your life?
Well, that's a fantastic question, and you're absolutely right. It is confusing, and I think that's why most people don't even lean into it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
It is scary. But I would suggest this. There's a few layers to it, obviously. Like on the highest macro level, you can be offering something that's no longer necessary. But I think those things don't change that quickly. And there are sort of common human needs and necessities that are always going to be there, even if they shift slowly.
Okay.
On a high level, if you don't go, you can combine, I guess, the niche that you're trying to serve with the mission you're trying to advance. That elevates it, broadens it, because now it's a mission-driven thing, and you're attracting not just somebody who wants to solve sort of these micro problem, but they're attracted to your missional spirit. This is a guy who's trying to change the world in one way or another.
So the mission could remain constant, but the niche may change within which that
may
fits.
shift. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And you keep your audience because of that. For example, like when I say, I really truly believe that I just love when people flourish in difficult circumstances, especially under sort of these restrictive environments. For example, corporate culture is a restricting environment, right? Sometimes it's an oppressive environment. The things that don't allow us to live exactly how we would, like in alignment with our values, right? Those are restrictive environments. The reason I'm passionate about it is because I grew up in very restrictive environments, right? So that's a mission. That is a higher. There's a why, right? And then the what exactly is, okay, let's work on developing a personal brand, because that's the bridge to that kind of flourishing, freedom, higher level of art right? Creation. So that's an illustration for you. Does that work for you? Does that
Yeah.
describe something?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I also what I interpreted from that is that when you talk about mission or values, that people, in order to continue to do business with individuals, and be referred from others, is as much about who you are as a person as it is about
Yes.
what the specific pieces of work are that you do.
Oh, so trust, right?
Yeah.
So we went from even in media, right? So you and I are part of the media environment right now, as we're talking, right? It's democratized, and so media initially was more of a temple, right? There were priests and gatekeepers and rituals and catechisms, right? So you have to make it to an official publication of the news and things like that. Then social media came along and basically blew up the temple,
Mhm.
and it became really more in the media an economy of attention. So, and that's what I think many of us, if not most of us, get irritated by. It's like the clickbait, the drama, the polarization. All of that is because the business model of social media is attention focused.
Mm. Yeah.
Now, the media, I think the media is changing because, and you and I are speaking, I am interested in being on your platform because you're interested in what I have to offer, but I'm also interested in your platform because you have an audience who trusts you. And if they trust you, maybe by proxy, they will give me a chance to say something that may resonate with them.
That
That's a
makes sense.
trust economy. That's
Mhm.
not attention
Mhm.
economy. That's trust.
Right.
And you are, David, in this particular setup, a category of one. You cannot be commodified. So that's the answer.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna leverage that. So
Exactly.
so let me take a little bit of a leap off another side and say, so you were, I think you said, performing in 15 countries in Europe or something like that.
Yeah. Eastern Europe. Hmm.
And so what kind of performing were you doing? Because then the next question
Hmm.
I'm going to ask is, so how has that informed what you do now, or is it a
Yeah.
totally separate part of your life? So first of all, what
No,
was it, right? So.
it's actually, yeah. So what was it is I was, I was very creative most of my life,
Mhm.
but I come from how environments inform what you do. I come from a family that no one is an artist.
Mm.
Everybody's an engineer. Everybody has a higher education. My mom's a teacher, and that was not even like a conceivable pathway. First of all, because of family, and also when I went back after being growing up in Africa to the Soviet Union, is such a restrictive, like it's the definition of zero upward mobility and possibility, right? Like entrepreneurship is not even legal. To make it in show business, you have to be approved by a whole chain of people that you have no contact with.
Huh.
So when the whole thing fell apart, all of a sudden that creative sort of backbone. I was a good dancer. I was a good singer. I always loved music, but I was getting an education in economics. I have a master's degree in economics. I speak 4 different languages. I'm more than capable going in that direction. Most of my colleagues did, but I was like, you know what? Everything sort of collapsed, and if everything is possible, I guess there's no gatekeepers anymore. It's an absolute free market in the pure sense for like a decade in Russia, right? In starting in '91. And I'm like, I'll give it a try, right? So that's what happened. I started doing pop music, and literally within a year, I was on national television. I sold millions of albums and toured all of that cultural space of 15 former Soviet Union countries, which now are now way more divided. So everything from the Baltic states in the west, Ukraine, all of the stans, all the way to Vladivostok, which is like 100 miles from Japan, right? That whole space we covered because all of the same television stations and radio
Mm.
stations were broadcasting there, and all the same structures are still selling albums there.
So one of the things I want to make sure uh, happens is that we have in the program notes both about your company and what you do, which I
Yeah.
looked at your website, is very interesting, but also some of the music. So hopefully people can be able to find some of that
Oh,
as well,
yeah.
because that adds another texture to who you're listening
It
to,
does.
right?
It really does. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
And the thing, to answer your second sort of secondary question from that, is that you're absolutely right. Um, it's so fascinating. I stumbled upon personal branding in my 20s.
hmm,
you know. And the reason I stumbled upon it, and I say it stumbled, it's not like I'm a genius or anything, is that I didn't fit in anywhere. I was an immigrant.
Mhm.
So you try to fit in. That's our primary, very primal, I would say, human need, is to fit in. And there's this all kinds of primal things that that fuel that is fear of rejection by your tribe, all of that stuff, right?
Mhm.
Well, what if you're dark skinned? You grew up all over the place. You can't be local anywhere. So the only choice you have is to stand out.
Mhm.
And that's essentially what I think that was the switch that went off. I'm like, you know what? Everything's falling apart, collapsing anyway. Might as well do something crazy, see if it sticks, or, and I went all in, and I realized that there's a secret there. There's a massive advantage in aiming high and not aiming for the middle, because the middles is so crowded.
Crowded, yeah.
And if you aim high and you just say, okay, who am I? And that's the ikigai conversation that I didn't even know the term back then, right? Oh, I have African rhythms and Latin American melodies, and I have dance from Michael Jackson and Prince,
Hmm.
all those influences, and I can combine them into this one sort of entertainment product and music that can be scaled, recorded, and distributed. And I didn't rationalize anything. I just did it, right? And all of a sudden, millions of people want that thing.
Mhm.
And songs that I wrote in my kitchen are being sang by a sports arena of people, word for word. So that is experientially a powerful thing. You can never unlearn the power of personal branding after that. So then that sort of stuck with me, essentially.
So there's a number of images that are running through my mind when I was listening to you speak. And, it used to be that in management circles, all the different metaphors were used that you don't want to be the tall poppy because the tall poppy is one that gets cut
Yeah,
off. And
yeah,
and now really what we're talking about is you should be a tall poppy, have more
yeah,
tall poppies out there. And I guess another thing that occurred to me is that some of the transition you went from the environment you're into now is that there were boundaries that were
yeah,
set up, structures and things like that. And sometimes those boundaries go away, but they're fixed in someone's mind so they don't challenge them. And I think of the time like when COVID came along, and all of a sudden people had to go online, and some people still had these boundaries that were they must play within that prevented them from dissolving those boundaries and see those boundaries could actually be played with rather than played within. So while some people suffered, others thrived, right?
yes,
Because they were
precisely.
able
Yeah,
to really capture that creative spirit that you were talking about and really have that personal brand that stood out when everyone else is kind of right?
that's exactly it. And now, I mean, we live in this beautiful new reality where the tall poppies are actually the ones who do well,
Hmm.
and everybody else gets essentially replaced by AI, which is scary. And yet, and so that's what I'm saying. I think we're incentivized now to be the tall poppy for the first time in history, and on that level, right?
And part of your organization, you are required to help some of the tall poppies become taller poppies, right?
Yes, yeah,
Because
yeah,
right,
and
because
own it, and
yeah,
own it, yeah.
yeah,
You know,
exactly.
and I think honestly, all of us have the potential to be a tall poppy for someone, and that's sort of the beautiful thing about living in an interconnected world with whatever 7 billion people inhabiting it, is that you will be a tall poppy, a perfect tall poppy, for 1,000 people, and you will have you are irreplaceable for them. Right? So it's not really about being viral, it's really more about being vital for the right people, you know?
That's a
Um,
great distinction. I love that.
yeah,
And by being vital, you become viral, but it's not the
exactly.
objective is not to be viral.
It's not the objective, yeah.
Love that. Love that. So if there are some listeners out here, I have no idea who my listeners are. As I said, I don't really notice how many people, so the 4 or 5 people that are listening right now, if there's some people who are just kind of questioning, do I have what it takes to be a tall poppy? Do I have something? Is it even possible for me to have a personal brand because I'm so ordinary? What advice or what questions would you suggest that people ask themselves where they might find the strength and the courage to actually head in that direction?
Well, you actually mentioned, the really the main thing that is necessary for that. It's really not expertise, it's not smart, it's courage.
Hmm.
It's courage, because what prevents us from even exploring it is fear.
Hmm.
It really does, you know? So part of the coaching that I do has to do with, I have three pillar things in my core program, which is sort of the initial 3 months, is we need to in order the third one is the brand. We need to establish some sort of thing that has a business model, a clear way to monetize that is specifically for you. But before that, you need to find your edge, right?
Hmm.
The competitive edge, who are you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which is the ikigai sort of
Hmm.
adjacent stuff. But in order to do that, you need to have the right fueling that, which is so the third one is fuel. And fuel is what is to be able to be creative, to be free, to be peaceful, to be sharp in your mind, high performance in your mind every day. Because if you're living as most Americans do, over half, in a permanent, perpetual state of anxiety,
Okay.
you will not be able to access the treasures that you carry within you, and you can't find your edge. If you can't find your edge, you can't build a brand.
So for those of you that are out there that have that 50% anxiety, you might want to get on that pretty quick
Yeah,
because it,
absolutely. That's the
because
first thing you do. First
because
thing.
it's a big barrier.
It really is. Yeah.
So, Kristen, thank you very much for being with me today, and I hope some of the things that it's piqued people's curiosity about, because I think we should be perpetually curious is about who is this Christian character? What kind of music did he do?
Oh, yeah.
And
You'll find a lot of long hair 90s music videos on YouTube if you Google me.
that would be so cool, and hopefully they become part of you become part of their playlist, and also more about the business that you
Yeah.
do and how you go about doing it. So. Yeah, I found it very energizing. It's made me think about a lot of things for which I am very grateful. And I would like to thank you very much for being here with me today.
David, thank you so much. If I can offer a little gift and something that will help your audience, I have a scorecard on my website. So if you go to exponential.life, is what exponential is spelled without the E. There's a scorecard. There's a little button there. Get your scorecard for free, and it basically asks you a bunch of questions and gives you a scorecard specifically for building your personal brand. How ready are you to do that? What are you good at? Okay, you need to work on this, and then you can have a personal brand. So go there, check it
Fabulous.
out. It's really great.
So for those of you that are listening to this while you're driving, don't try to remember that. It'll be in the
Yes.
program notes. So go and pick up that scorecard. Check it
Yeah,
out. I mean, that's the first start as a baseline for deciding where you want to move from.
it is.
So this is David Gouthro, Discover Fresh Perspectives, here today with Christian Ray Flores. And why don't you come back next week and get some different perspectives from someone else? Thanks for listening. Subscribe now, because on Fresh Perspectives, every episode is an opportunity to explore new horizons and redefine what's achievable.